This video goes over sample problem 1, located in Blackboard Chapter 1 folder under Chapter 1 Activities and Assignments. Print out all necessary pages and follow along. The approach to doing these types of problems is to first read it carefully, to process and think about the given information, and third, write notes. Let's get right into it. Bill Neely, age 28, his social security number and his address. I'll leave it to you to fill it out. It's the top section of Form 1040. Bill is employed by the Outdoor Center. He's a general manager, and Bill's W-2 for the year shows the following amounts. Box 1, gross wages, $41,000. Let's think about this. This is income. Income is from whatever sources derived. Here it's gross wages, it's salaries, wages, tips, compensation. And where does that go in Form 1040? Income goes from line 1 through 7A. This would go on line 1. So let's note it. Next, box 2 of the Form W-2 is federal income tax withheld. This is prepayment of tax withheld by the employer and was remitted to the federal government already. Therefore, we would show it as paid. Where does that go on Form 1040? Line 17. Let's write that down. What about box 4 and box 6? Social Security and Medicare tax on the Form W-2. These are not relevant information for the 1040 purpose. At this point, you may wonder, how would you know what line from 1040 that these information go on? And the answer is, you have to be familiar with Form 1040. Spend some time to review the Form 1040, get to know, be familiar with it. It will be a lot easier when you do these sample problems. And going over the sample problems with you at this point is part of the process to get you familiar and know Form 1040. Be sure to view the videos in Chapter 1 on Getting to Know Form 1040. Continuing on, Bill also had the following investment income during the year. Qualified dividends from Bell Canoe Company, $2,500. Interest from Regions Bank, $2,000. These are income, and income again goes in the first section of Form 1040 from lines 1 through 7A. Where would this go? Qualified dividend goes on line 3A, so let's note that. Ordinary dividends goes on line 3B. Is this ordinary dividend or is it qualified dividends? This is qualified dividends, right? $2,500 goes on line 3A. But this is also ordinary dividends because all dividends are ordinary dividends. Again, all dividends are ordinary dividends. So this is qualified dividends. It's also ordinary dividends. Therefore, $2,500 also goes on line 3B. Information about dividends is in Chapter 2. Chapter 2-9. The sum of all type of dividends would go on line 3B, but only qualified dividends is reported on 3A. And qualified dividends means that it's qualified for a lower tax rate. And what are those lower tax rates? Let's take a look on this page. Here's a chart showing the filing status and the range of income. For example, an individual that's single with income of, let's say, $39,000 in this range from 0 to $39,375, tax rate of 0%. That is fantastic. If it was ordinary income, it would be at least 10%. We know ordinary income is from 10% through 37%. Here it's either 0%, 15, or 20%. So someone with qualified dividend of $400,000 is only taxed at 20% instead of the 37% for ordinary taxable income. Because of the lower tax rate, the preferential treatment for qualified dividends, we want to separate that from the ordinary taxable income, and so we report the qualified dividends on 3A, while all dividends, now including qualified dividends, we report on 3B, and 3B will flow all the way down to 11B. The two different tax rate calculations are then later done by using the worksheet Qualified Dividends and Capital Gains Tax Worksheet. Let's now go back to the sample problem page. Bill's stepbrother Eddie lives with him. Bill pays all costs associated with the apartment in which they live, as well as 60% of Eddie's support. Eddie is 22 years old, a part-time student at Southwestern Community College, and earned $4,500 working a part-time job. A lot of information to process here. This information is to determine whether Eddie, his brother, is a dependent or not. We know that Bill, age 28 and so forth, he's not married, so he's probably single. But does he have a dependent? That would matter to Bill, because if he has a dependent, then he can file as head of household, in which case he would have a higher standard deduction and a lower tax rate. Could Bill's brother be a dependent that's a qualifying child? Yes. A brother or a sister, half-brother or half-sister, even step-sibling or descendant of any of these could be a qualifying child. Think of the scenario where the father and mother died and the older brother or sister have to take care of the younger sibling or his or her descendants. In other words, it's the niece or nephew. Bill's brother lives with Bill, so that passes the domicile test. Bill pays all costs associated with the apartment in which they live, as well as 60% of his brother's support. What about the support test? A child who provides more than half of his or her own support cannot be claimed as a dependent of someone else. If Bill provides 60% of Eddie's support, then that means Eddie is not providing more than half of his or her own support, right? So that's okay. It passes the support test. Now, Eddie is 22 years old. A child must be under 19. So Bill cannot be a qualifying child. Actually, a qualifying child could be 19 or older, however, must be a full-time student. Is Eddie a full-time student? No, he's not. He's 22 years old and is a part-time student. So Eddie cannot be a qualifying child. What about as a qualifying relative? Let's take a look. Relationship test is passed because Eddie is a brother. Now keep in mind that for a qualifying relative, it does not have to be a relative. It could be anyone that is a member of the household that lives with the taxpayer for the entire year. Gross income test. The individual cannot have gross income equal to or above the exemption amount, which is $4,200 in the year 2019. The problem says that Eddie earned $4,500 working a part-time job. So Eddie makes higher than the threshold limit of $4,200. Therefore, Eddie cannot be a qualifying relative. The reasoning behind it is that anyone that makes above the threshold is too much and would not be a dependent then. And Bill cannot claim Eddie as a dependent and cannot be head of the household. He is single. Now, just as an aside, does Eddie pass the support test? Yes, because Bill provides 60% of Eddie's support, which is more than half of his or her own support, more than half of Eddie's own support. At this point, we've done the analysis, broke down the information, made notes. You can fill out Form 1040 as you do the analysis or at the end. Itemized deductions are not given in the problem, so we will use the standard deduction. In this case, a single individual for the year is $12,200. We arrive at the taxable income of $33,300. Is this the figure that we are going to look up in the tax rate in the Appendix A for the tax amount for the next line, line 12A? No, it's not. We are not going to use this figure because we have qualified dividends of $2,500 reported on 3A. This $2,500 is subject to a different set of tax rate, qualified dividends tax rate, and the rest of it will be ordinary income tax rate. However, this $2,500 is a portion, it's a part of this figure, the $33,300. So we cannot look up this number directly in the tax table. Rather, we have to use a worksheet. This worksheet is called the Qualified Dividends and Capital Gain Tax Worksheet. Use this worksheet to get the tax number and fill out 12A.